Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. Excuse me. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the judicial activism in the United States, at whatever level of the judiciary you're talking about. Lower courts, entry-level courts, mid-level courts, upper-level courts, appeal courts. You're struggling now to find any area of the judiciary in the United States and around the Western world, by the way, that has not been willfully and purposefully subverted and corrupted by the globalist and political class by inserting well-known activists, radical ideological activists, into the ranks of the judiciary. Now, if you're going to, certainly in my case anyway, if I'm going to appoint anyone or hire anyone to any job, I don't want a radical activist. I want someone who's going to do the job as the laws or the rules or the policies or the whatever require. And they're obligated to discharge those duties as stated in the rules, the law, the position description, and so on. And that's it. Now, if they want to step outside of that, then they do so by consensus. So that we have to sit down and talk about it if they want to say do extra things. But typically you're hiring someone just to do the job. Now, if you've got some radical activist in front of you saying, "I hate white men, Nazis are everywhere," you wouldn't even dream of appointing them to a job. But these are the sort of people that are getting appointed. And if you look at the Senate hearings to do with federal judges, particularly during Biden's or the goon squad that was running America while Biden was sitting in the chair. If you look at those Senate hearings, I'm aghast at just how many of those people are radical activists, and their writings and tweets and social media postings are being read out of, America is a place full of Nazis, Hitler, and we have to fight Hitler, and all these type of expressions. And the globalist Democrats put these people up as federal judges. Fuck. But it goes a little bit wider, I think, than that even the lower courts have been fully infected with these sort of activist people, and we can see that now in the amount of judges that are starting to be uncovered, and the FBI and ICE are doing work on this. The amount of judges that are brazenly aiding and abetting the law breaking of illegal aliens. Now, we're not talking about some local citizen mother who stole a chocolate bar at the local shop. And if someone lets them off, but these are in some cases these illegal aliens have also committed crimes not only in the United States but also in the countries that they came from. Why would the judges care? The judges are just there to interpret the law and that's it. That's their job. So why are these judges stepping so far outside of the bounds of their job? And they're heralded as being stunning and brave by the chattering elite classes. They're supporting mass migration and they're supporting the oppressed. The legacy, mass media is 100% on their side, coming out with all sorts of stories. I mean, the idea of illegal aliens or undocumented immigrants, that's dropped now. They're just migrants. So the language has been changed. So it's just migrants, it's just rando. The Trump administration is just rando grabbing migrants off the street for no reason, just like Hitler did in Nazi Germany. And so the framing has really changed to any deportation of these illegal aliens, any deportation at all, is for any reason, doesn't matter, is now being reworked as, well, it's the same as what the Nazis did to the Jews. So it's being reworked along those lines, which will give you some idea as to who's at the core of the propaganda machine there, given that it's the instant reach for Nazis, Jews, Hitler, and so on. But there was a judge, I think it was in Milwaukee, and she attempted to assist an illegal alien and the illegal alien's lawyer go out a back door, a side door, or something while ICE was waiting outside. She wouldn't allow the ICE into the courtroom to sit there and wait in the public viewing gallery, which every court has. So she could have, why she would want to stop them doing that and why they would actually accede to that demand. They'd have every right to sit in the gallery there. But so they had to wait outside, and while she fobbed them off and gave them some kiss-off bullshit excuse, she was trying to let these guys out the back door. And fortunately, there were another ICE agent or two agents were still hanging around, and they spotted this and went after the guy, and as far as I understand, apprehended and arrested them. So now the ravings of the judge are very ideological. It's but it's just like Hitler and concentration camps, Nazis, and some very emotional, very ideological stuff. So clearly, that person's been given the job as a judge, and whoever appointed them knew full well that they were an ideological fanatic. They knew full well that this was a low IQ person. They knew full well that this person would act in an ideological activist manner in determining court cases. So that they knew that at the beginning. So whoever was appointing them or putting them up for it or funding them or underwriting them, as far as I understand, this judge her election campaign was funded by an NGO that in turn was funded by USAID. So we need to look at the tentacles of funding for all these judges, and wherever there's USAID NGO funding for a judge, just getting a district judge getting elected, then we can be really sure they're electing and purposefully, willfully electing an activist. Now, the only job that the judge has to do is just interpret the law. That's what a judge does. So when there are competing claims over, well, in this case, deportation, or it could be competing claims over ownership of something, or anything. The judge is meant to examine the law, precedent law, case law in the books, and make an interpretation or a judgment based on the law. Now, these judges are discarding the law completely. I mean, it's not like they're even giving it lip service. They're just saying, well, the law, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't exist. We're operating in this ideological vacuum, and we're able to do whatever we want. And when we aid and abet this illegal criminal alien, then what we're really doing is fighting Nazis. That's what we're doing. That's really it. Therefore, we have the sort of moral permission to break any law we want at any time we want, to any extent we want, because we're allowed to, because we're fighting Hitler. That sort of ideology. Now, you have to have a very low IQ to really even sort of start down that road. So we're talking low IQ, radical ideological activists. And when you listen to these judges, again, even the judges that were being, in the Senate Review Committee, and again, federal judges, if I close my eyes, I thought I was sort of listening to first year, gender studies student or college kid, that sort of whiny activist type voice that you get from those college kids, and they were talking like that. People in their 40s, 50s, and so on, 60s, and these were the people that were being installed as judges, and because in my view, at least, the Democrats stacked the Senate election, or a few districts in the Senate election in 2020. They had the majority in the Senate to appoint those judges, and so they've put something like 200 radical activist judges in the federal court, which is insane. Now, to give you an idea, if you look at the social media postings, they believe that the radical activism that they, the ideological fanaticism that they show, or they hold dear, and that they're the resistance fighting back against Hitler, and this view that they have is such that they think anyone that does not think as they do is the radical activist. So there are a number of these activist judges that, again, the Biden folks put up. And they would say, well, we're allowed to do this because Donald Trump appointed judges that believed in the law and the Constitution, and some of whom were Christians, and therefore, we have every right to do what we're doing because look what he did. He puts constitutional judges in there, judges that believe in the law, but the law is there to oppress brown and people in minorities, so we have to fight back against the law. So the law is some evil sort of creature that exists, and it is there. They are required to oppose it and to step around it, and they see this very much as their function. And remember, they've been selected and appointed because they believe that. And we're seeing them being flushed out here in the immigration thing, that the courts are openly defying it. Now, it appears to be, from what I can tell, coordinated. So now it could be all people who just have the same view and the same mind, the same bunch of ideological fanatics who come from the same NGOs that preach all the same bullshit. It could be that. But I think it's more than that. But I think there's, and if the FBI gets out there and looks at the communications between the judges and the judges' administrative assistants and each other and to the NGOs, they'll see a very coordinated network of messaging, propaganda, and so on, and inside information. Listen, I'm tipping you off, Mary Jane. ICE will be coming to your courtroom when you hear the case about the illegal, Jose Garcia. So the judge can just decide to change the time of the hearing, or not hear it on that day, or hear it at very short notice, so that ICE don't have time to mobilise to get there, and all these sorts of things. And we can look at this as happening on a grand scale. There is now what is tantamount to an underground movement of judges that are coordinating amongst themselves within the districts, across states, to thwart the arrest and detention of these illegals. Now, again, we're talking about judges that have they're emotionally, they're still teenagers, and they still see themselves as placard waving, I'm fighting, I'm the resistance, I'm fighting back against it. They still see themselves as placard waving teenage protesters on the street, only now they're wearing a black robe and getting paid handsomely for really just doing more placard waving like they did as teenagers. So they and one recent, a judge was sent out I think it was a social media post. No, I think it was an internal sort of memorandum, if you like, among the judges, where I'm not going to let ICE take people and put them in concentration camps like Hitler. And so, you shouldn't say the Hitler bit, but the concentration camps. What are you even talking about? You stupid little shithead bimbo. What are you even doing in it? You should be working in some outer suburban retail store or some shit. You fucking moron. But these are the sort of people that are all over the place in the judiciary now. The idea of the judiciary being a place where the sober and accomplished legal scholars will be out, those days are long gone. And we need to accept now that the entire legal establishment all across the Western world, and this has been done purposefully, has been subverted, and at every opportunity, low IQ, ideological, simpleton activists have been installed in judicial positions. Now, I'm sure if they're hearing a case where there's no ideological sort of issue there, that there's it's two black lesbians suing each other or something like that, then they probably will attempt to address the law and so on. But if there's any, their view is that social power should be the only determinant of legal outcomes. And if you have more social power, you must lose the case. You have less social power, you must win the case. Even where the person with the most social power is like 200% in the right and has all the evidence on their side, the judge will declare it as a draw rather than actually hand victory to the higher social power. And this is the thing. So when Jose from some third world shithole is in the court, illegal alien, criminal legal alien, it doesn't matter. To these activist judges, all they see is the social power differential. They don't see anything else. Nothing else is relevant to them. Nor could they comprehend. These are not high IQ people, and again, they believe the law is an instrument of oppression for minorities. So they think they're doing something, grand and stunning and brave by flouting the law, and they don't seem to realise that they're actually a judge. Their job is to uphold and abide by the law. But no, I'm leading resistance against Hitler. So I think the FBI needs to do a serious crackdown on all the judges. And if a judge makes decisions, helps illegals or makes odd, perverse decisions, then all their communications to NGOs, to activist groups, and so on must be looked at. And if there's even a whiff of compromised integrity or impartiality, then at the very least, charges should be brought. Now, I noticed that when the state was going after Trump with everything they had, or Trump's ally, or even the January 6th people, then these globalists and their propagandists in the media saying no one's above the law, no one's above the law, no one law, no one's above the law. And now when these judges were brazenly breaking the law, getting arrested. Oh no, look, the Nazis are arresting people randomly for no reason. Yeah, sure. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.